"Mom, you're too old. Get out of my son's birthday party." The words hit me like a slap across the face, leaving me frozen in the doorway with the little gift trembling in my hands. For a second, I prayed I had misheard him, that my son, the boy I had raised with every sacrifice, could never speak to me that way. But the cruel look in his eyes and the silence of the guests watching told me the nightmare was real. The sound of laughter and music carried from the living room, children running around with balloons, the smell of cake and fried food filling the air. I should have been welcomed with open arms, my presence celebrated. After all, I was the grandmother, the woman who had helped build this family from nothing. But instead, I stood outside the door like an intruder, while my son's words echoed again and again. "Too old. Get out." I wanted to scream, to ask him why, to beg to at least hug my grandson before I left. But the hardness in his voice left no room for questions. The small gift in my hands suddenly felt heavy. I had spent weeks saving for it, a toy train my grandson had been dreaming of. I imagined his face lighting up when he opened it, his little arms hugging me tightly. But now, all I could do was clutch it tighter as I turned and walked away. My legs trembled as I made my way to the car parked outside. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the bright wrapping paper shining under the streetlight. Tears blurred my vision, but no sound escaped me. My heart had been broken before in life, but nothing compared to being rejected by the very child I had once carried in my arms. That house, the one where the party was happening, was more than just a home to me. It was a place I knew intimately, a place I had helped him buy when he was starting his family. I had dipped into my savings, scraped together every cent, even sold the gold bangles my mother gave me, just so he could live in comfort. I told myself at the time that I was investing in my son's happiness, that it was worth the sacrifice. Now, that same house had become the place of my humiliation. I thought back to the early years, when it had just been him and me. His father had passed away young, and I had shouldered everything alone. 2 jobs, sleepless nights, endless sacrifices. I never complained, because every smile of his was worth it. I wanted him to grow up feeling loved, safe, and proud. I told myself that no matter how hard it was, one day he would thank me, one day he would care for me the way I had cared for him. But as I sat in the car, his words still slicing through my soul, I realized I had been wrong. Too old. Get out. At first, sadness consumed me. I drove home in silence, my chest heavy, the gift still unopened on the seat beside me. When I entered my small apartment, the emptiness felt unbearable. I placed the gift on the table and stared at it for hours, my tears dripping onto the wrapping paper. But slowly, the sadness began to twist into something else. Something sharper. Anger. How dare he speak to me like that after everything I had done for him? How dare he erase me from his life when my sacrifices had built it? Every bite of food he ate growing up, every school fee, every new pair of shoes, every opportunity had come from me. I had starved so he could eat. I had worn torn shoes so he could have new ones. I had given him everything I had. And now he told me I was too old, as if my life no longer mattered. But he had underestimated me. He thought age made me weak, fragile, easy to discard. What he did not realize was that age makes you dangerous, because you carry with you the wisdom of years and the power of secrets. I walked to my bedroom, knelt down, and pulled an old wooden box from under the bed. The box was dusty and worn, but inside it held my most valuable possessions. Photographs, letters, papers, memories of a lifetime. But buried among them was something more important, something my son never thought I still had. The deed to the house. When he had begged me years ago to help him buy it, I had agreed. But I never gave it up completely. The papers still had my name on them. He thought the house was his, but legally, I still held power over it. He had forgotten, but I had not. And now, that paper in my hand felt like a weapon. As I stared at the deed, a slow smile spread across my face. My son thought he could humiliate me and throw me away like an old rag. He thought I was powerless. But soon, he would learn just how wrong he was. That night, I did not sleep. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the ticking of the clock. Every second only hardened my resolve. I thought of my grandson, of how his parents were teaching him cruelty, showing him that disrespecting elders was acceptable. I could not allow that. I would not let my legacy end with humiliation. By morning, my plan was forming. It would not be rushed. I would move carefully, gathering every piece of evidence, every memory, every ally I could find. I would let them think they had won, that they had succeeded in cutting me out. And then, when they least expected it, I would strike. Because I was not just an old woman. I was a mother. I was a fighter. And I was about to remind them both that the quietest woman in the room is often the most dangerous. The morning after the birthday party, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at the deed. My hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the storm rising inside me. My son thought I was too old to fight back. He thought I would quietly accept the humiliation. But what he did not know was that mothers do not forget and grandmothers do not forgive easily. For days, I watched in silence. My phone remained cold and quiet, no call, no message, not even a single photo of my grandson cutting his birthday cake. I told myself not to cry, but my eyes betrayed me every night. Yet each tear only fueled the fire in my chest. I promised myself this. I would not leave this world being remembered as a helpless old woman discarded by her own blood. I would leave as the grandmother who fought back. I began by visiting the lawyer's office. Mr. Daniels had known me for years, back when I worked as a secretary and raised my son alone. He was surprised to see me, but when I placed the deed on his desk, his eyes widened. "Mrs. Miller," he said slowly, "do you realize what you have here?" I nodded. "I want to know exactly what I can do with it." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You still own 50% of that property. Your son cannot legally sell it, rent it, or even renovate it without your signature. If you wanted, you could take full possession back." My heart skipped. Full possession. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lifting off my chest. My son had mocked me, discarded me, and yet he was living in a house that was not even fully his. But revenge, I told myself, is sweetest when it is slow. I did not rush. Instead, I began gathering proof of every cruel act, every insult, every humiliation. Neighbors had witnessed him yelling at me, pushing me out of the house, slamming doors in my face. Even relatives whispered about how cold he had become. I asked them, politely, to put their words on paper. Some hesitated, but many agreed, disgusted by the way he treated his own mother. Meanwhile, I visited my grandson's school. Quietly, I spoke to his teacher. She admitted he often looked sad, sometimes even asked why his grandmother never visited anymore. My heart cracked at those words, but I knew the truth was important. The teacher promised to write a statement. Every piece of evidence was a brick, and I was building my wall of justice. One evening, I drove past their house. The lights were bright, laughter spilled out, music played. But when I parked across the street, I saw something that made my stomach twist. My son and his wife were loading boxes into the car. Not just ordinary boxes. Boxes filled with documents, jewelry, cash. I realized at once what they were planning. They were preparing to sell the house. My house. The next morning, I went straight to Mr. Daniels. He helped me file an emergency injunction. Within hours, the court froze any attempt to sell the property. My son had no idea. He thought he was about to cash out and leave me with nothing. But the law was already on my side. The day the truth came crashing down on him, I was there. It was a court hearing, small but powerful. My son walked in with his wife, both dressed in expensive clothes, smug smiles on their faces. They did not even glance at me. But when the judge read the documents aloud, their smiles melted. "This property is not solely owned by you," the judge declared. "Your mother retains equal ownership. Any attempt to sell or transfer without her consent is fraudulent." My son's face turned pale. His wife whispered furiously into his ear. And I sat calmly, holding the same gift I had brought to the birthday party. The toy train, still unopened, still waiting for the grandson who deserved better. But I was not done. I stood and handed the judge a thick folder. Inside were the statements from neighbors, teachers, relatives. Proof of how I had been humiliated, discarded, mistreated. The judge read in silence, his expression hardening. "Sir," I said with my voice steady, "I gave my life to raise this man. I gave him food, shelter, education. I even gave him this house. And in return, he told me I was too old and threw me out like garbage. I am not here for pity. I am here for justice." The courtroom was silent. My son shifted uncomfortably. His wife avoided my eyes. Finally, the judge delivered his decision. The property ownership would be transferred fully back to me. My son and his wife were ordered to vacate within 30 days. Any attempt to harass or contact me against my will would be considered a criminal act. My breath caught in my throat. I had one. As we left the courthouse, my son finally looked at me, his eyes red with anger. "You ruined me," he hissed. "No," I said softly. "You ruined yourself the moment you forgot who your mother was." For weeks after, they tried everything. Begging, threatening, sending relatives to plead. But my decision was firm. I moved back into the house I had once sacrificed everything for. It was not just a house anymore. It was proof that no matter how much they tried to erase me, I still stood strong. And on the first night back, I unpacked the toy train and placed it on the living room shelf. One day, I told myself, my grandson will know the truth. He will know his grandmother fought for him, even when everyone else turned away. Because in the end, I was not too old. I was not too weak. I was the grandmother who turned betrayal into justice. And that is a story my son will never be able to erase.